All right, well, welcome everyone. As Matt just said, my name is Josh Becknall. I am the Student Ministry and Community Groups Pastor here at Church on the Hill. And I know what some of you are thinking now. You're like, oh man, we got the backup. And I get it. It's New Year's. I understand that. But to be completely honest, when Scott told me, he was like, hey, you're speaking on New Year's Day, I was like, dude, they're all going to be half asleep or hungover. So we've got our concerns, but I think we're going to get through it together. But no, I am actually really glad all you guys are here. It's exciting to have you. It's fun to start off 2017 like this. For all of us that work in ministry, there's something that happens when we know Christmas Day is going to fall on a Sunday, because that means that New Year's Day is also going to fall on a Sunday. You know, that math of 7 days. And so there's always that thing in the back of your head like, are people going to show up? And then to make matters even worse, I don't know if you guys know this, but Matt went to Ohio State, and if you're a college football fan and you saw what happened last night, I'm kind of surprised he's here too. I know it's rough. Sorry, Matt. That was a low blow. But I was, we did Christmas, and a lot of people showed up, and we had a great service, so we're really thankful for that. But I was thinking about it, I'm like, Christmas has a fairly strong tie to church and to Jesus, so it makes sense that you're going to come to church. But New Year's Day, there's really no connection at all. So the fact that all of you decided to show up, we're really excited to have you. I'm glad that you're here. I'm excited we get to start this new year together. And I'm hoping we get to have a little fun, have a good time together, and kind of kick off the new year right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take a minute and talk about something that a lot of us do this time of year. I was looking at a website called Statistic Brain, and if some of you guys are like, that's not a very trusty website, don't worry, it's not that important of information, so it doesn't matter. But I was looking at the website, and they calculate or estimate that about 63% of people set New Year's goals or make New Year's resolutions. So we can easily say a majority of people make a New Year's goal or set New Year's resolutions. Now, to make sure everyone is feeling good to start out 2017, I am going to soft toss and just lob an easy question for you, because on this website, they list the top 10 New Year's goals or New Year's resolutions. So I'm going to have you tell me, what is the number one New Year's goal or New Year's resolution? Gosh, you guys are so smart. Everyone knows it's to lose weight. Number one, resoundingly easy, lose weight. And if you're anything like me, you understand why it's to lose weight, because for some reason at about like mid to late November, a little bit before Thanksgiving, all of a sudden there's this influx of food that just never stops. It's ridiculous how much food ends up in your kitchen or on your plate or in front of you, and it's just crazy. And if your workplace is anything like mine, or your home for that matter, there tends to be more snacks and more treats also, and those snacks and treats tend to be of the sweet and chocolatey type. Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. And for me, and actually I'm going to say for all of us, there's no one in this room, I'm not saying this isn't necessarily your self-control or your willpower, but I'm just saying there's no one in this room that walks by a box of See's chocolate and is like, man, that little old lady was clueless in the kitchen. She just had no idea what she was doing in the kitchen. No, every single one of us sees the box of See's chocolate with that sweet little lady on the ribbon, and we look at it and we're like, that lady's a genius. Like, she was brilliant. And she put those little snacks in this little brown cupcake-looking thing, and it just sits there and tempts you like, go ahead and try not to eat me right now. And you're like, okay, you win, and you have one. And then you have like 5, and the next thing you know, the top shelf of the box is gone. You're like, oh, that's kind of embarrassing, but whatever. And then you justify it even more because you're like, man, it's really cold outside, and I've been wearing puffy clothes all day, so what's an extra 2, 3, 4, 14 extra pounds? So clearly, the number one goal or number one New Year's resolution is to lose weight. The second one on the list is to get organized. And that makes sense too, because most of us traveled or had people over for Christmas, and then you got more stuff. And my wife and I have a little daughter who's going to be 2 soon, and the amount of stuff that she received for Christmas is absolutely insane. And so, like one little dish set and the whole room's just a mess. So getting organized makes complete sense. And then it goes on, it talks about spending less and saving more, and again, that makes sense with Christmas. But the point this morning is not for me to stand up here and tell you what the top 10 New Year's goals or New Year's resolutions are. The thing that I want to talk about a little bit more is something that really stood out on this webpage to me, and it's this. Of the majority of people that set a New Year's goal or set New Year's resolutions, the success rate is brutal. 8% of people succeed at achieving their New Year's goals or resolutions. 8%. Let me say it the other way. 92% of people fail to achieve their New Year's goals or resolutions. I don't care who you are, that is not good. 92% failure rate is bad. And I'm going to let you guys know about this because it was just amazing to me too. Going back to the number one goal of losing weight. Of all the people, I believe it's in the United States, or actually, we'll go back a little. Obviously, the way that we decide we need to lose weight is clear in America. What that means is you don't need to change your eating habits, you don't have to exercise more, you just have to buy a gym membership. That is all you have to do. That's what works. You want to lose weight, you buy a gym membership. If you ask people that go to the gym, they'll tell you January is absolutely awful, and they have to wait all the way to like January 9th before it slows back down again, and everyone leaves. But this thing was absolutely amazing to me. Of all the people that own a gym membership, your dues are paid. And if this is you, I'm not trying to make fun of you, just pointing it out a little bit. Of all the people that are paid members of a gym, that means you pay your monthly dues, you can go anytime you want to that gym. Of all those people, 67% never go to the gym. Almost 70% of people who own a gym membership never even set foot in that gym the entire year. Never once. I told Katie, my wife, I was like, man, forget making a New Year's resolution to get fit and go to the gym. We need to make a New Year's resolution to buy a gym and then take all the memberships. We'll sell off the gym in February and let 70% of the people just keep paying us because they're not coming anyways. So other than the fact that it seems wrong and immoral, it might be a good way to make some money. And on top of that, the crazy thing is, the average gym membership fee, $58. $58 a month to never go to the gym. Now, the point that I'm making in all of this, we are not very good at accomplishing the goals we set at New Year. I would say it is safe for us to say it is a struggle for us to actually accomplish what we set out to do at the New Year. If that many people are paying for a gym and not going, and we're failing at 92%, there's a struggle there. And so what I want to bring up, because I was thinking about that, I thought to myself, how is it that 92% of us fail at what we set out to do in the new year? And what I came up with, and I think you guys will agree with this, is that we realize that sometimes we set goals for ourselves that may not actually give us the results that we really hope for. We set goals, but then realize this may not actually bring about the result that I really want it to bring about. And for me, I think you guys will agree with this, but for me, I think the worst thing in the area of goals is not to set a goal and then fall short of it. I think the worst thing in the area of goals is to set a goal, to achieve it, and then have it not give you the desired results that you were hoping for. Let me try to illustrate this with something in my life. As you guys saw, I've been doing student ministry for a pretty long time. And what that means for me is that summers get pretty crazy and they get pretty busy. And what I've found in myself is there's kind of a cycle I go through. And in early to mid-May, I take a look at the calendar and I realize, oh man, there's a lot coming. And it feels like I blink, I take a breath, and the next thing you know, it's late August or early September, and summer just somehow vanished. And what happens by the end of that time is I kind of find myself in a place where I'm a little low on energy. I'm kind of burnt out. I can be a little bit more negative and grumpy than I'd like to be. The patience level goes down. I kind of just, in general, act like a turd a little bit, if you know what I mean. There's younger kids. I think that's okay. But what really happens, what the real problem is I start acting like and being a man that I don't really want to be. I've set different standards. I have different expectations. And when I act like that, it frustrates me, and I don't want to be that person. So this previous year, I set up with my wife, like, okay, towards the end of summer, I'm going to do some things that I usually don't get to do in summer because things get so busy. So I'm going to do some of the stuff that I like to do, and hopefully that'll recharge me and kind of put the wind back in my sails, and I'll be good to go after that. So that was the idea. And the three things, I wanted to go golfing with a friend that I knew that I wanted to go golfing with for a while. I wanted to go ride my dirt bike, and then it was either a hunting trip or going to shoot my bow, something like that. And I set up, and we set up a time, and my wife took our daughter, and we were good to go, and I went and I did all three of those things at the end of summer. And the worst thing to me took place. That same grumpy turd that I started with was the same guy at the end. And I remember being so frustrated because I went, man, if I had failed to do those three things and didn't get the result I was hoping for, fine, I fell short. But to do all of those things and have the plan not work out, that's much worse. And I see this a decent amount, and I work with high school students. I think another illustration is this. You see some students that want to get into really good schools, and the school requires like a 3.8 or a 4.0 to be able to get admission to the school. And the student tries really hard and has that as the goal, but they end up with like a 3.5 or a 3.6. And they end up not being able to go to the school, and they fall short. And I look at that and I go, man, that's okay. You still graduated, you had a good GPA, you had all these different things, and you just fell short, but that's life. That's okay. The ones where it's really difficult is the ones that, they have like a 9.6 GPA because they took every AP class ever known to man, and they have more extracurricular hours than anyone else ever has before, and they went to the moon 3 times, and then they also have more community service hours than they do sleep hours, and they put in this resume or this application, and the school says, no, you're denied. And they far exceeded the goals, and they went above and beyond, and they did everything else. And I look at that and I go, that to me is way, way worse than setting a goal and just falling short. And the point that I'm getting to out of that is this. In this new year, I would hate for us to set goals and achieve them and then have it not give us the desired result, much more than it would be to set a goal and just fall a little bit short. And I think for some of us, the reason why we're so bad with our New Year's goals is we realize, even if I achieve this, it may not fix the sole issue that I'm really driving for. It may not actually give me this result that I'm really hoping for. And so we give up on it. And so what I want to do this morning is hopefully help us to make goals this year that will actually bring about the result we really want. I am not saying that any of the goals that we kind of poked fun at earlier, whether it's losing weight, one of them on the list was to quit smoking. One of them's to help people in achieving their dreams. In no way am I saying that those are bad goals or things we shouldn't strive for. I'm simply asking all of us this morning to ask ourselves the question, if I achieved every single one of my goals, or if I did all the things I set out to do in 2017, would it make the difference in my soul that I really want it to? Because we don't make goals just because. We do things for a reason because we have a desired outcome that we're looking for. And I want all of us to ask the question, if I set these goals and I make these goals this year, will it actually make the difference in my life that I want it to? So to get some help on this, I want us to take a look at the book of Esther. If you haven't read the book of Esther, it is an incredible book. It is such a good story. I love this book. It's great. And I'm going to do something that's fairly mean this morning. I'm going to give you guys a summary of like the first quarter of the book, and then when it really starts to get rolling, we're just going to drop it and not finish it. You guys are like, what? That's mean. Yeah, but you have a Bible. You get to go home and read it, or it gives you a great reason to download it on your phone. So we're going to get into the book of Esther, and then right when things really start getting rolling, we're going to stop. But let me give you a rundown of the first quarter of the book of Esther and what's going on, and then we'll get into that book a little bit. But in Esther, there's a guy named King Xerxes, and he's the one that's ruling at the time. And just for context, for all you guys, or kind of how things work, at that time, if you're the king, you pretty much just get to do what you want, whenever you want, however you want. It's just what it is. You get to do whatever. And so King Xerxes has his queen, and then he decides, not so much, don't like her anymore, so he gets rid of her. And so the queen's gone, but he decides, you know what, I want another queen. And so they kind of set up a process for him to get his new queen that's a little bit shady, so we're not going to read all of it. You can do that at home on your own. But he goes through and he figures out who his new queen is. And he decides on Queen Esther, or what would be Queen Esther, a woman named Esther. And what people in the palace or in the royal family don't know is that Queen Esther is actually a Jew. The reason why they don't know this is because her uncle Mordecai is the one that raised her. It's her uncle, but it's essentially the father figure for her because her parents both passed away. So she didn't have parents, so her uncle took her and kind of became her father. So this guy Mordecai is essentially her father. Now, in the kingdom at the same time, King Xerxes has his high-ranking officials, and one of his high-ranking officials is going through the town, and as he's going through the town, there's this guy that won't bow down to him. And the rule at the time was when one of those high-ranking officials or one of those powerful people in the area walk through or go around, you have to bow down to him. And this one guy that happened to be Mordecai, Esther's father figure, would not bow down to him. And so this guy, his name's Haman, Haman decides, you know what, I'm going to my king, and I'm going to let him know about this one guy that's just driving me crazy. Because I'm an authority figure, and he won't bow down to me. And so he goes to the king, and he goes, you know what, I don't think it's good enough that I just kill this one guy who won't bow down to me. Because he's a Jewish man, I want to kill all of the Jewish people. We are going to annihilate the Jewish people because this guy will not bow down to me. And so the king, because he gets to do whatever he wants, goes, sure, we'll make it a law. And they send out this edict, and it's essentially saying, okay, it is now going to be okay for everyone to just annihilate and kill all of the Jews within our whole province. That's how it's going to go. And Mordecai, the father figure uncle, finds out about this edict or about this law, and so he sends word to now Queen Esther that people don't know is a Jew. And he sends word to her and he says, hey, you need to go to the king and let him know he needs to change this rule or change this law, or all of our people are going to be wiped out. We're going to be slaughtered if you don't get him to change this rule. And so Esther gets this word, and then she sends back something to Mordecai, and she says, hey, Mordecai, just kind of a little bit of royal rules or how things go in the kingdom is this. If you go before the king and you were not asked to go before the king, there is one rule. You die. It's pretty simple. There's not a lot of gray area on this one. If the king does not summon you and he did not ask you to come into his presence and you show up in his presence, you're gone. And that's just the rule. So she sends that back to Mordecai. Mordecai gets it and he sends word back to her and he says, hey, Esther, we're all going to die. And maybe you became queen for this moment. And it says it like this. In Esther chapter 4, it's the second part of verse 14 through 17. And Mordecai says to her, and who knows but that you have come to this royal position for such a time as this? In other words, maybe you became queen for this exact moment. And then it says this, then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai, Go gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish." So Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instructions. And we're getting to that point, and I'm just going to leave you right there. I know it's rough. But the reason why I'm going to leave you right there is this. Esther had a big decision. Esther had some things in front of her. Esther had something in the future, and she goes about things in a way that I think we can learn a lot from. I think Esther can educate our 2017 quite a bit if we take a look at what she chose to do when she realized she had something big in front of her. And the first thing that Esther does is she says, "Mordecai, gather all of the people. Get everybody together." And for some of us, what you need to hear as we head into 2017 is this. You need to get some people around you. You need to let some others into your life. I said at the start of this, I am the community groups pastor, and I will unashamedly say, I think you need to be in a community group. I think you need to connect with people. I think you need to let the walls down and get in some intentional relationships where people really care about you and where you have a purpose and a point and you have a community and you gather together and you stop trying to do it all on your own. For some of us, we need to head out in 2017 and drop the whole Lone Ranger act and let some other people in and ask for the support and get the support. I've heard a pastor say it like this many times. You can either have your privacy or you can have help, but you don't get both. And for some of us, we need to stop trying to be so private with all that we're trying to do. As I told you, I'm the community groups pastor, and so I have read book after book and seen study after study that supports over and over again. We are so much better when we are in an intentional community than we are when we're trying to do things in isolation. Whether it's the number one New Year's goal of working out and losing weight, you are way more successful if you have people supporting you in that than if you try to do it alone. Whether it's business, whether it's relationships, or whether it is your spiritual life, we are so much better together and in intentional relationships than when we try to do things alone. If you don't trust me, go read the book, The Power of the Other by Dr. Henry Cloud. It is amazing the stats that support how much better we are when we have each other, when we actually rely on each other. So for some of you, you need to realize that it's time to let the pride drop a little bit. To realize things are messed up in your life, that you're not perfect, that there's a little bit of brokenness and some things you're probably embarrassed of, and you need to let some other people know so you can find out, guess what? Welcome to the club. We all have some brokenness. We all have some embarrassing spots, and we all have some things we want to hide. And those things don't lose the power in our lives until we let other people in and try to help. And for some of you, you might be on the other side, and you need to realize in 2017 that you're actually worth it. You are valuable enough and worth it enough that other people actually will want to invest in your life, and they will want to help you. You are more than valuable enough to take that time and accept that from people, and you need to come to the point where you do. Point number 1 from Esther. Get others involved. The second thing she does, she says, get others involved and tell them all to fast. Now, for some of you, you're like go fast? What does that even mean? What fasting is in this context is they are choosing not to eat or drink for 3 days and 3 nights. They're choosing to say no to food, so when their normal, natural desire for food arises in them, they use that as a reminder to take that time and be intentional and spend time with God and to just get with God and take the reminder of the desire for food and use that desire for God. So I'm going to translate that fasting and make it a little bit more generic and say what some of us or what all of us need to do in 2017 before we just head out on our goals is to get alone and to spend some time with God. We need to spend some intentional quality time with our Lord and Savior. And again, some of you are sitting out there going, what do you mean get alone with God? Isn't he like always present and kind of with me right now? So let me give you an illustration from my life to try to just make this as clear as possible of what I mean. At the previous place that my wife and I lived, it was a little studio, and it was just the upstairs of someone's house, and it was just A-frame roof, and we just had this big open area, and at the end of the open area, there's a little closet, and when you get through the closet, there's another little closet that's the angle roof because of the A-frame, and it had like a 3-foot ceiling and 2 wooden dowels on the side where you hang clothes, and it was just this little closet. It was like a elf playhouse. Or if you're my wife, she could just stand up in there, but that's beside the point. I love you. She said I could, so it's okay. But it's just this little area. And what I would do is I would go into that area, and I would just lay on the floor. And I would start it out in one of 4 ways. I would either read the Bible, I would listen to worship music, I would pray, or I would do absolutely nothing. And I would start that way. And then I would just lay there on the floor in this little elf room, and my whole goal was to just clear my mind and quit thinking about other things. Just stop thinking about all the other thoughts I usually have, quit thinking about whatever else. And some of you guys are like, that's called meditating. Okay, fine. I would go in there and meditate. Whatever you want to call it, I would clear my mind with the whole goal being, God, I want to take time to quit being distracted, to quit thinking about other things, and just give you the time and the space and the opportunity to speak to me if you choose to. To, on a regular basis, just set apart this time to clear my mind and go, okay, God, this time is yours. Do with it what you want. And there's times that I'd be in that little room, and I would have this verse pop into my head, and I'd look it up in the Bible, and I'd be like, oh my goodness, it is amazing how much this applies to my life right now. And then there was times that I would flip to a verse that popped in my head, and I'd be like, Lord, I have no idea what this means. I am clueless on this one. There's times that absolutely nothing would pop in my head, and I'd probably doze off by the end of it, and there's times that I would have something where God laid it on my heart of just, Josh, you need to check in with that person. Or Josh, you need to adjust your attitude in this area a little bit. Or you need to work on some of those behaviors a little bit. And no matter what came out of that time that I spent with God, just being intentional, what ends up happening for me is that as I, on a regular basis, and I routinely get alone and I spend time with God, it reprioritizes my life and it restructures me to where God is in the place that He's supposed to be, and I'm in the place that I'm supposed to be. And there's a peace that sits in my soul because of it that I cannot even explain to you right now. I wish I had more time to really just speak through what I'm talking about when I say you get that time where you connect with God, and all of a sudden it just gives you the peace within that you can't explain. But that's what I'm talking about, is when we set out for this new year of 2017, we need to get alone and be intentional and spend some time with God. Instead of just making our goals by walking by a mirror and being like, oh, that spare tire is embarrassing, I should do something about it. To actually invest and go, okay, God, what do you want? And that's the third and final thing that I want us to learn from Esther and I want us to look at this morning is this. It doesn't say it directly in the text, but when she says fast, you can assume she's thinking pray also. When Scripture's talking about fasting, it's also going to be talking about praying. And the last thing I think we need to do in 2017 to make sure we have goals that actually make a difference, to make sure we set out and we do things that really make a difference in our souls, is we need to take some time and just pray. To say, God, what do you want from me in 2017? What do I maybe need to stop doing that I've been doing for a while? What do I need to start doing that I haven't been doing? Or just, God, where do you want to go? What do you want to direct me in? But God, what do you want in 2017? Because my hope and my desire and my prayer for everyone in this room is that we would not set goals that leave us in the same position we started of still having this desire or struggle in us. My hope for every single person in this room is that we would get to a place where we deeply know and understand what it is to have the peace of God resting in our soul and to have that influence everything else in life. To come to the place where we feel so fulfilled that we don't have to worry about the insecurities and the struggles and all those other things, but to feel content and to feel worthy and to feel loved as we head out in this year. And I don't think we get there without God. And that's my hope for every single one of us, that we set out in 2017 and we do this different. Again, this is not to say that the other goals are bad. They're not. But I'm simply saying, even if we achieve those goals but don't have peace in our soul, it's not going to make the difference that we're hoping for. I'm going to close with this. Psalm 63. It's a psalm from David. And my hope and my prayer is that every single one of us would deeply know and understand what David is talking about in Psalm 63. And it says this: O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh faints for you, as in a dry and weary land where there is no water. So I have looked upon you in the sanctuary, beholding your power and glory. Because your steadfast love is better than life, my lips will praise you. So I will bless you as long as I live. In your name I will lift up my hands. My soul will be satisfied as with fat and rich food, and my mouth will praise you with joyful lips. When I remember you upon my bed and meditate on you in the watches of the night. For you have been my help. And in the shadow of your wings I will sing for joy. My soul clings to you. Your right hand upholds me. Let me pray. Father, I would ask that every single person in this room would know what that psalm is talking about. Lord, that as we set out in 2017, we would consult you on the goals. We would give you permission to lead us where you want. And that we would follow in that, Lord. Lord, my hope is that every single person in this room would understand what it means to feel like your soul was so satisfied with rich and fatty foods. Lord, may that be what our 2017 consists of, Lord. We love you. Amen.